The plane soared through the sky, cruising at 30,000 feet, en route from San Francisco to Seattle. It was supposed to be a smooth, uneventful journey, a short hop barely long enough to settle in before reaching the destination. But within minutes of boarding, it became clear this flight was going to be anything but routine. Near the entrance stood Emma Carter, a tall, poised woman with a warm smile and her dark hair pulled into a neat bun. Dressed in her crisp uniform, she exuded a calm professionalism that made her seem like she'd been doing this job for years. Little did anyone know she wasn't your typical flight attendant. The trouble started early. A middle-aged couple in matching designer outfits exchanged exaggerated looks the moment they saw her. The woman leaned into her husband, whispering just loud enough to ensure Emma heard, "Guess they'll hire anyone these days." Emma didn't flinch. Years of practice had taught her how to let comments roll off her back. Instead, she offered the couple a polite nod and gestured them to their seats. It didn't take long for their attitudes to spread. A few rows back, a man in a wrinkled polo shirt struggled to shove his oversized carry-on into the overhead bin. "Hey you!" he barked at Emma, his tone sharp and demanding. "A little help here?" The words stung, but Emma maintained her poise. "Of course, sir," she replied smoothly, stepping in to assist. But as she maneuvered the bag into place, the man muttered under his breath, "Unbelievable. Can't even do her job without being told." A few passengers chuckled. Others pretended not to notice. Emma caught the smirks but didn't react. She moved on to the next row, her expression calm, her hands steady. But Emma wasn't here just to serve drinks or adjust luggage. She had a far bigger role to play, one the passengers would never have guessed. Emma continued her work, moving through the cabin with a steady pace. Her professionalism was unwavering, but the tension in the air was palpable. It wasn't the entire plane, just a small group of passengers who seemed to find amusement in testing her patience. Seated near the front was the couple from earlier, clearly unimpressed with everything about the flight. "Can we get someone else to help us?" the woman said, waving Emma over as if she were invisible until needed. Her diamond bracelet glinted under the cabin lights. "I don't want my drink spilled all over me." Emma kept her smile intact. "I'll ensure that doesn't happen, ma'am," she replied, setting down the drink with precision. But the woman didn't stop. "You know," she added, her voice dripping with mock concern, "maybe you should stick to tasks you're comfortable with. This might be a little advanced." A soft snicker came from behind. The man in the wrinkled polo shirt chimed in, "Guessing this isn't her dream job anyway." The comment lingered, its weight heavier than the laughter that followed. Emma excused herself and stepped toward the galley, taking a moment to catch her breath. But even there, she couldn't escape. A young man with earbuds dangling around his neck approached, holding up an empty water bottle. "Need a refill?" he said curtly, not even bothering to make eye contact. "Of course," Emma replied, taking the bottle with a practiced hand. She filled it and handed it back, only to hear him mutter, "Figures it would take this long." The words weren't new to Emma. She had heard it all before, comments designed to chip away at her dignity, to test her patience, to see if she would break. But today wasn't just another day at work. Emma wasn't here to observe only the passengers. She was here to observe the crew, the policies, and the overall customer experience. She wasn't just taking mental notes, she was preparing to act. What no one knew was that Emma had spent the last 6 months reviewing operations, restructuring departments, and meeting with stakeholders. Today's flight was a test, not of her as a flight attendant, but of the airline itself. But the passengers didn't know that. For them, Emma was an easy target, and they were about to push things further than they ever should have. As the plane gained altitude, so did the hostility. Emma moved through the cabin with trays of drinks, navigating the narrow aisles with grace. Yet every step seemed to invite a new round of disrespect. The couple in the front row flagged her down again. "Excuse me," the woman snapped, waving an empty cup. "This isn't sparkling water. I specifically asked for sparkling." But the atmosphere in the cabin was changing. The passengers thought they were in control, unaware that Emma had been silently assessing every move, every word. They had no idea the power she held, or how quickly things were about to shift. The tension reached its peak halfway through the flight. The passengers' antics had gone from irritating to outright humiliating. A spilled drink here, a snide remark there, each moment chipped away at the veneer of civility. Yet Emma never lost her composure. But everything changed when a man in a suit, a latecomer who had boarded right before takeoff, called out from his seat. "Excuse me, miss," he said, his voice loud and clear, cutting through the murmurs. Emma turned to face him, her expression unreadable. "Do you have any authority on this plane, or are you just here to smile and serve?" he continued, leaning back in his seat with an air of superiority. "Because if this is how this airline operates, it's no wonder your reputation's in the gutter." The cabin fell silent, the tension thick enough to cut. For the first time, Emma paused. She let the weight of his words hang in the air, her eyes scanning the faces of the passengers. Some looked away, avoiding her gaze. Others watched intently, waiting for her response. Emma straightened her shoulders and took a step forward. "Sir," she began, her voice steady and calm, "I appreciate your concern about the airline's operations. In fact, that's why I'm here today." Her words were met with confused looks and a few murmurs. "I'm not just a flight attendant," she continued, her tone firm but measured. "I'm Emma Carter, the CEO of this airline, and this flight is part of an initiative to observe our service firsthand." The cabin erupted in gasps and whispers. The man in the suit froze, his smug expression replaced by disbelief. The couple in the front row exchanged panicked glances, and the man in the polo shirt shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Emma let the silence stretch, giving her words time to sink in. "I've been watching, listening, and learning," she said, her voice carrying through the cabin. "And what I've learned is this: respect costs nothing, but it's worth everything. The way we treat each other defines who we are, not just as individuals, but as a community." Her gaze swept across the cabin, landing on each of the instigators. "This airline was built on a foundation of dignity and service. It's my job to ensure that foundation remains strong, not just for our customers, but for our crew as well." For a moment, no one spoke. The air was thick with the weight of her words, the passengers processing what had just happened. But Emma wasn't finished. She had one more message to deliver, and it would leave an unforgettable mark on everyone on board. The silence in the cabin lingered, heavy and unrelenting. No one dared speak as Emma's words echoed in their minds. The once rowdy passengers now sat rigid in their seats, their bravado replaced by unease. The man in the suit, who had so confidently challenged her moments earlier, cleared his throat awkwardly. I didn't mean any offense," he stammered, his voice subdued. "I had no idea who you were." Emma turned to him, her gaze steady but calm. "It's not about who I am, sir. It's about who you are. Regardless of who you're speaking to, titles and uniforms don't determine someone's worth. Kindness does." The couple in the front row shifted uncomfortably. The woman's previously sharp demeanor softened as she managed a weak smile. "We didn't mean anything by it," she offered, her tone apologetic. "Just a little misunderstanding." Emma nodded but didn't let them off the hook so easily. "Misunderstandings are natural," she said, "but the way we handle them reveals a lot about our character. I hope this flight gives you something to think about." As she spoke, a ripple of guilt seemed to pass through the cabin. Even those who hadn't been directly involved, the quiet observers, now wore expressions of discomfort. They had allowed the behavior to continue without standing up, without saying anything. But one voice broke through the discomfort. The young mother at the back of the plane, still holding her now sleeping baby, raised her hand hesitantly. "Thank you," she said softly, her eyes filled with gratitude, "for standing up for people like me and for yourself." Her words sparked a wave of quiet acknowledgement. A few passengers nodded, and one older man clapped softly, the sound hesitant but genuine. It spread until half the cabin was applauding, their claps a mixture of appreciation and embarrassment. Emma didn't smile, but there was a warmth in her eyes. "This isn't about me," she said, her voice calm but firm. "It's about how we can all do better. Whether it's on a plane, in an office, or anywhere else, we can always do better." The passengers sat quietly, reflecting on her words. The man in the polo shirt rubbed his forehead, avoiding her gaze, while the teenager beside him stared out the window, his smirk long gone. But Emma knew actions spoke louder than words. She had one final act planned that would make this flight unforgettable. As the plane began its descent into Seattle, Emma stepped into the middle of the aisle, her presence commanding attention. By now, every passenger was watching her with a mix of respect and curiosity. "I'd like to thank you all for taking this flight with us today," she began, her voice steady and sincere. "What happened here isn't unique to this plane, or even to this airline. It's a reflection of how we treat people every day, strangers, colleagues, and even family. My hope is that today serves as a reminder to all of us." She paused, letting her words settle in. It's easy to judge someone based on what you think you see, but true character is revealed in how you treat people when you think no one is watching. I was watching today, not as your CEO, but as a person who believes we can be better. A few heads bowed and murmurs of agreement rippled through the cabin. Even the couple in the front row looked genuinely remorseful, their earlier smugness replaced by humility. As the plane touched down and the fasten seatbelt sign turned off, Emma had one last announcement. "To those of you who showed kindness today, thank you. And to those who didn't, there's always another chance to do better. Life gives us those opportunities every day." As the passengers disembarked one by one, some offered quiet apologies, while others simply avoided eye contact. But the young mother with the baby stopped in front of Emma, her eyes welling up with tears. "You don't know what this meant to me," she said. "Thank you for everything." Emma smiled warmly, placing a gentle hand on the mother's arm. "You're stronger than you realize," she said. "Never forget that." By the time the last passenger left, the cabin felt transformed. It wasn't just a flight, it was a lesson in humanity, one that no one on board would forget. As Emma walked off the plane, a crew member approached her. "That was incredible," they said quietly. "I've never seen anything like it." Emma gave a small nod. It's not about being seen, it's about making a difference. The lesson was clear. Respect and kindness shouldn't depend on titles, roles, or appearances. They should be the default, everywhere, every time. And maybe, just maybe, that reminder had the power to change someone's day or even their life.